hide there. Alright, that should work. Alright, so I've taken the names off of the people who've played this game, and that's because though they were kind enough to give me an example that I could use for my shoulder hit lecture, I'm using them as an example. I don't know, I think I might be a little bit disparaging on my remarks, so I did not want to leave their names in case they felt in any way insulted. Yes, this was a KGS game, I believe. Let's see. I do have a nice example that I will be putting up after this, where we see some really good examples of how to use shoulder hits. This one actually, it's not that bad, but I do have a few things to say about it. The opening I don't really care about. I could spend some time pointing out how this isn't really the best Joseki that could have been chosen by Black. That pulling back is probably going to be better, but for my purposes I don't really care. I mean, there's obviously going to be Joseki problems with a game like this. Here as well, I'd rather get a forcing move in there or something. But I'm not terribly interested in Joseki mistakes and things like that. I'm only interested to find out how and why they're using shoulder hits. And right now, we are seeing a lot of high moves from Black. This becomes very, very important. We have the 4-4 on the upper right, so kind of denoting influence. We've got pincering on the 4th line, very interesting. He's clearly trying to develop a wall, so he's got the idea where he's going to be using influence in his game at some point. That seems to be what he's trying to work on. Okay, so we can all understand that. He approaches high, sure, why not? He's attaching again because he's really, really after that influence. I like that he's dedicated to that. Does need to study a little bit of Joseki to make certain that he's actually picking the optimal choices for these particular variations. White, a little bit unfamiliar. Really, never gave thought. I was, at around 9K, I was already starting to memorize pro games, so I was beginning to throw that idea around in my head. And about this time, I also kind of fell into the whole influence thing. I loved 4-4 stones. I loved 5-4 stones, 6-6 stones, Tengen. Essentially everything that I don't play, almost everything I don't play now. But alright, here he sacrifices, completely understandable why. This is horrible, complicated mess that I would not want to try and figure out. So he sacrifices, sure, understandable. It's a question of which pro games that you're paying attention to. Some of them are very, very easy to understand. Living into his corner. White's extending. Now here's something that's very interesting. We see this move reflected. White's extending, and you see this a lot in some weaker Q games. White's extending, but he doesn't want to extend all the way across because he's afraid of being pincered. At the same time, he doesn't want to just take a simple extension because he thinks it's too slow. We have the exact same thought for Black. He wants to extend, but he's afraid of extending too far, and he's afraid of extending not far enough. So he's kind of sort of making these halfway moves, which give us, interesting targets for a potential shoulder hit game in terms of how to reduce it. Let's back up here and say, let's say he already had something on the left. If you didn't want to invade, a simple shoulder hit would be good for reducing this. Because what's your opponent going to do? They're going to run along the 3rd line. That's a pretty reasonable reduction. Is he going to try and come out? Either way, he's not going to be building this up, which is what he would like to do ideally. So this is a nice example of when you might want to consider using one, rather than simply jumping in here if you don't want to get into a complicated fight. But alright. Taking enclosures. This, I disagree with white. Again, 8Q game. But from a very fundamental standpoint, you can see that he now has a stone that if black gets a wall, and it looks like he's going to, it's only a few lines away from this really, really large wall that he's creating. Now we shouldn't actually see a shoulder hit. We should see a pincer, because this has absolutely no chance of getting a base, and that would be bad. We definitely want a base with that stone. Pincering, fine. I would play here simply because I want... Well, I'd either play there or I would play here, because I want the largest wall I can possibly get. And I know if my opponent plays this way, I'm going to get it and I'm going to pincer him. Hello. But this is pretty reasonable. Ooh, that wasn't reasonable. Connect here and can't do anything. If he connects, we can connect. He has to live. You get to kill. Unfortunately, it's Gote, so now he also gets to fix himself here. So yeah, a few crazy moves, as we kind of expect. But here's an interesting shoulder hit. This is where we see very, very interesting thoughts from black. Because what is he trying to do with this? Is he trying to attack this group on the right? Is that what he's using the shoulder hit for? Not so much. Not so much. He's trying to obviously... He's obviously trying to use it to develop the center, and we can see that he's kind of had that thought all game, that he wants to play some influence, and he's looking to shoulder hit low groups in order to keep building up that influence. That's actually a pretty reasonable idea. I like that. I do like that. He has a consistent thought. Whether it's a good idea to do it in this particular instance, can't really say. Well, I can probably actually say it's probably not the greatest idea to have here for reasons that are actually being said. One of which is the Aji at here, for example, that can be cut through, and now we're going to be in trouble, because how we're actually going to live through this is going to be a bit tricky. And by tricky, I mean we're not going to. So he has other things to worry about, but I like that he's got that idea, and he's trying to figure out how he's going to do that. I do like that a lot. And you can see he's going to push. Unfortunately, he leaves. I would rather him continue trying to build up something here and keep that idea alive. That'd be pretty nice. Maybe even, if he can read this out, use the attachment here to see if he can't keep this nice and low as well. He could probably develop a nice little center there. Seems reasonable. Instead, he kind of plays away, which doesn't really do what you want it to do, because these two stones here, they were trying to give you influence, but now they're kind of a target, because these stones are weak and not connected to anything. You kind of have to, I don't know, either attach and try and run back, or go this way and hope you can connect on up. So not really accomplishing the goal, but it was not a bad goal. You can easily see what the aim was for it. This, on the other hand, I don't like so much. Does anyone know why I don't like this, though? Can anyone tell me why I don't like this from a really, really fundamental level? Then again, I shouldn't use the word fundamental, because my ideas are fundamentals, and yours might not be the same. I mean this F4 stone. Too close? Okay. Too close makes sense. Thank you move. Yeah, okay, it does, it does, it does. Helps his position. Black isn't getting very much. Yeah, let's take a look at that real quickly. We can see here that even if Black continued in this fashion, all he's trying to really obtain for himself is maybe a couple of points here, while that bottom is completely sealing itself for White. Whereas since he took the trouble of making himself nice and strong on the outside, I would much rather even see the 3-3 at this point, because if White blocks this way, I mean, where is this happy little wall facing? It's facing two stones you can't really attack very well because they're all nice and strong. So this is just turning into pure territory for Black, with very little a downside. So, yeah, now E8 looks like a genius. Yeah, it's exactly what he was aiming for. Which could, I mean, that's interesting in its own right. If he had actually followed up with C3, that would have been impressive, because he'd be saying, okay, now you need to defend yourself. I'm going to go back and keep you low here, maybe. Go back in Hane and really start developing that middle. He'd be bringing everything together. That'd be kind of impressive, actually. He had a plan and he was carrying it out. Instead, he's solidifying his opponent, which wasn't all that great. I think that was the only other shoulder hit in the game, unless I'm misremembering this. Am I? I don't think so. That, and that went over to there. No, there wasn't a shoulder hit. He protects that. Yeah, there were no more shoulder hits in this game. There were no good options for a shoulder hit. The shoulder hits that I'm looking to go over are ones that have a very large impact in the early game, rather than if there's one that occurs, in later game. I'm not so interested in those right now. Now, that said, I do have a game in which we actually get to see a very interesting example of how to use a shoulder hit in the early game, early and mid-game rather, which I think you will all enjoy. So I'm going to close this and open up another one. I will see you in that. Let's see. What do we got here? Upload SGF to the enclave. Yeah, you. There we go. Alright, and those of you who pay attention to my channel on YouTube, you might recognize that I very, very briefly went over this game. I highlighted it in one of my recommendations. Indeed, indeed. And this was actually the influence variation, which, lo and behold, has some rather interesting shoulder hits. You can see it's between two professionals. White, I've paid attention to his games for a long time. He plays some really, really brilliant games and some really, really not so brilliant games. But he's a pretty good player. I wouldn't put him at the level of Isidore, but he is one to watch. Immediately, Black chooses a mini high Chinese. We don't usually see the mini high Chinese very often. This is being used for influence. The first thing your opponent's going to do is start reducing your influence on the right side of the board. The bottom, since it's all high, is easily invadable. So it can be a bit tricky to use. But rather than invade the right, White decides he's going to counter the mini high Chinese by creating the low Chinese on the left side of the board. So that's interesting. It gives black options to continue building however he chooses. He decides to continue building up the bottom. White goes back and reduces the right-hand side. Okay, makes sense. And immediately we have a shoulder hit. And here's one example of when you can use a shoulder hit. It can be used to build up. Because yes, we can simply make a 1-point extension. However, if we only make the 1-point extension, we do not have any idea if this is going to be sente or not. And the most we can follow it up with, let's go follow it up, is something like this, which we all know how to handle. I mean, in an emergency, we have nothing else available to us. We can do something like this, and we're going to be fine in the corner. Not very frightening. With a shoulder hit, though, if we ignore that, go back and play T19, well, this is a bit more severe, right? You're not going to be getting quite as much. I'm getting that in a second. You're not going to be getting quite as much in the corner, so even after all of this, you're definitely going to probably want one more stone back there because you have a really, really tight group. So the question is, why are we doing it? Well, one, this is your follow-up, and two, it's most likely going to be responded to because of it as a more severe follow-up. This move, we might not actually see it responded to. White might just keep approaching us. If we get something like this, he might simply go back and settle and not care. Instead, now he's going to I mean, he could have played something like this, I suppose. But if you do that, you're just strengthening black, which is what he wanted. I mean, the reason why we see white backing off low is because he doesn't want to strengthen the stone any more than he possibly has to. The reason why black is shoulder hitting a fourth line stone isn't because he's trying to really kill our group or he's really attacking our left-hand side. No, he just wants more of that influence in the middle. So white backs off and tries to avoid giving as much of that as possible. And immediately another shoulder hit. For the exact same reason. Is he trying to kill off this stone? Absolutely not. A shoulder hit is not going to kill your stone. But it is going to force you to get stronger, and he's going to get stronger while you're responding, giving him more influence that he wants. Exactly. It's very, very obvious. I mentioned that in my recommendations video, that this game was very, very surprising in how bold it is. Black is not hiding anything that he's trying to do. I mean, right from that move, we can see, okay, it looks like he's probably interested in a bit of a framework, some influence, choosing the high instead of the low, and immediately he completely verifies that. It's like, yep, that's exactly what I'm interested in. I just want to build this up. That's what I'm doing this game. I'm all about the influence. He's not going to try and, get it during a fight later on. He's just going to go and try and build it up immediately. See if he can get you to respond while he's doing it. Which we have to do. We can't let this stone get hurt. That would be a very common mistake. If we, for example, play the move in the middle, black's not responding to this. Black's going to respond by strengthening the right-hand side. Because now, not only did he have influence and still does in the bottom, but the entire right-hand side's up for grabs now that your stone is horribly hurt. So white's got to respond. Black's happy to get his influence that he's looking for. White's pretty content with his third-line territory. Black, again plays the shoulder hit because he's looking to keep those third line stones low and develop more for himself. Why? Because he's trying to take half the board for himself. Well, actually, no. I guess we're kind of beyond half the board. I mean, half the board would, be up at this line, where we're kind of gone beyond that point right now, haven't we? Yeah, I think he wants all of the board for himself. I think that'd be a bit more accurate to say. So definitely bold, definitely greedy, but the question is how... Yeah, I was rather happy about this. It's a great example of how you can use a shoulder hit to build up stuff. And it's such a pain to play against. I mean, how are you going to respond to all of these insane moves? White says, I can't do this. If I keep backing off and giving you walls across the entire board, then what's going to happen next? How am I going to reduce that? You're just gaining so much strength there. So he comes out. Black, as mentioned, cuts because he didn't protect. Might get some profit in the upper right-hand corner now for this. But on the bright side, White now has given some weaknesses to Black. White's got to worry about moves like that cut point, yeah. Plays the Hane. Now, this is complicated. Depending on the response, we might go to Ko. Or we might actually just take that and see what we can do later. Black connect, sorry. In case you're wondering why, there's a thing here. If we responded normally, White gets to attach. And if you've never seen this before, this may seem kind of like magic. Because what's going to happen is we can't drop down, right? That just gets killed. So all we can do is either connect or Hane, at which point White is rapidly living here. At this point, White might even be able to go back and simply connect here. Because how are you going to kill this? You don't really have a throw-in just yet. Huge wall, but that Black group right now isn't feeling very comfortable with itself. I mean, it's in a lot of trouble, while White really isn't. I mean, White gets to come out, put pressure on the group, and while you're running out, White's going to get this wall that he's actually going to just use to reduce you. So he connects. That was the problem here, that attachment. So he says, nope, no attachment. This group is all by itself. Very, very strong response. He sees that there's a weak group here. There's now a weak group invested here. If he really wants to live with his bottom one, all right, fine. Go right ahead. You've got 3 things on the board you're worried about. If you decide to suddenly care about one of them, you're allowed to do that. You can't take care of all of them at the same time. So yeah, pick one. White says, fine, I'll live here. Black responds pretty strong. Begins getting some profit. Keeps White low. Because again, he still has a lot of influence. That group on the right-hand side, these 4 white stones are all but dead. Not quite there yet, but they're on severe life support. Continues taking more influence for himself, because right now he's essentially regarding this area here as his framework, given that those stones are in such dire shape. I mean, right now, for example, if this group suddenly decides, oh no, I better run away, well, okay, Black can just follow it and take about a fourth of the board on top as territory, while this thing is struggling to live. So that's okay. Instead, white reduces again. And we see the happy move again. Happy, happy shoulder hits. Is it going to kill the top group? No, it's not. At all. All it wants to do, in this case, is prevent white from coming out, as we see here. We get the Hane, and there's really no cut to be had here. I mean, this group has to fend for itself. No real chance to cut here. So again, he's saying, fine, this can live. Every time we shoulder hit something, we completely expect to kill it. Not what I was trying to say. Whenever we shoulder hit something, we are completely not expecting to kill it. We expect it to live. We expect to make it stronger. What we expect to do from it, though, is get strength on the other side of that shoulder hit. As Orthodox says, one of the reasons why this is so very bold style to play with is that you are putting all of your territory in one area. I mean, right now, white knows the score, so to speak. If he reduces this that you spent so many moves on and given so much up for, if he manages to reduce that, that's game over. And typically speaking, it's a lot easier to reduce this than it is to keep it. So there's that huge question of, is white actually going to be able to do that? Or is this style going to completely fail? It's one of the reasons why why would we try this? Because I have to assume that either he likes influence. I have never actually seen this player before, I don't think. I'm going to assume that he's young. I'm going to assume that he likes influence. Probably just his style. I do intend to look up a few more of his games after this, though. I meant to do it before this, but I completely forgot until you actually asked the question. So, right, white's living, as we knew he was going to. The minute the shoulder hit was played, there was no chance of that being killed. However, I am forgetting one really important thing. What was that important thing? Yeah, we did it there, we did it there. Yeah, essentially here. This, for example, not completely alive yet, but in especially Don versus Q level games, typically when a style like this is played, oddly enough, the group being shoulder hit does tend to get killed because white will flip out and do something crazy, like immediately try and reduce all of this because he sees what you're doing, and then you would just go back and potentially kill him because he did not answer your moves, and that would be like the end of that. And I do intend to have games regarding that later at some point. But for now, he's living, black makes some shape, and now it's time. We knew this was happening. All of that in the middle, we know what happens if he lives. If he gets a nice living group here, then black is in some serious trouble. Nope, he did not miss Tengen. He is very stylish. He refuses to play Tengen. He is above Tengen. Well, technically below Tengen right now, but you know what I mean. So, points for that. Black doesn't get too greedy. He is content to say, fine. 8th line territory is good enough for me right now. So if you want to do something else, like run on home, then it's going to be okay. Instead, white says, no, I'm going to keep reducing you. To which black says, but you are aware you need to live here, correct? So he attaches here because we've got a happy little small knight. And one thing we know about happy little small knights is they have happy little agi. And that happy little agi can be happily cut and create lots of happy little problems. So he's ensuring that's going to be a little bit difficult and not possible to do. So he was looking for anything on the right hand, anything on the bottom, to make that cut point a little bit stronger. Mission accomplished. Next up, shoulder hit. Again. Why? Because he wants defense. He's surrounding the middle. If white actually responds to this, when once again, white is clearly behind enemy lines, and is having his only way of connecting out completely blocked off, this is not going to be a happy little group for white. So he says, you know what? No, I really, really can't respond to you there. I need to get something working. This I'm rather confuzzled about. Yeah, I'm not really certain what he was trying here. I mean, I get that there's Aji. There's still a little bit of Aji remaining with the small knight. There's a little bit Aji remaining with the idea that these stones, maybe they're not completely connected. If we get another move like this in, then suddenly the attack is on black and not on white, and that would be really, really cool. But it is thin and it is getting cut. So white connects, black cuts off. If we played it, it would be thin. If 9p played it, it is light. Indeed, indeed. Good way of thinking about that. And here's a mild disappointing part. I mean, if he was going for some kind of connection there, I guess he thought that black would connect here, and that he would get a chance to go back and play this. I don't know. But he doesn't. Black simply connects on up, and this cut isn't worth too much, as we can see here. Those stones in the center are pretty much still being swallowed up. We don't get to take any more stones on the bottom. I mean, I guess there is this later on that we could potentially do. I mean, that's got the reasonable endgame. I guess it is worth a fair few points. I mean, we can kind of... Oh, no, you go away. I mean, I guess we can see that it is worth a fair few amount of points. Alright, more than a few, I suppose. But still, that middle, you need to reduce it, because that's still very, very large. Oh, okay, he reduces immediately. I forgot about that. Alright, whatever. Right, makes certain that that can't go anywhere. Takes away the Aji. Those stones are cut off, and so tries to get those stones out again. And we see black's favorite move, the shoulder hit. So, small tip for you guys, if you want to be a professional, learn the shoulder hit. Can't really go wrong with it, it looks like. I mean, when in doubt, go right ahead, sure. Why not? I mean, how many have we had in this game so far? I've kind of lost count. We had one on top, we had 2 on the right, 2 on the left. Yeah, that's quite a lot. But in this case, unlike what we previously mentioned, the different uses for the shoulder hit, this one's actually trying to keep this weak group on in. Because this group is now almost completely surrounded. There is a little bit of a hole here, and there's bit of an odd shape point there, but this group's almost completely surrounded. And we know that if we played a move like this, for example, to attach, we're probably not getting that responded to anytime today. In fact, it might be white's turn to play a shoulder hit to get out of here. So here, black is trying to keep white on in. He has no choice but to respond. Attacks a corner. That was interesting. I thought we were going to see a little bit of a running battle here. I really did. It's probably what I would have played, because I'm bad at Go. I thought I could play something like this. He would make some shape. I would get maybe some sort of sente here. And, happily surround maybe, I don't know, no points here on the left-hand side. Yeah, that's a really great idea. There we go. Just let the middle live, take no points on the left-hand side, and be done with it. So we can see why my idea was obviously bad. It looks large until you actually read how easy that can be reduced. So white plays the honey. Black's getting in a couple extra moves. And now he might get a bit more. Now that he was able to get a few more stones in, there's a little bit more territory here, which white is going to try and reduce. Because now, if we were to play the other way, I don't know, let's just do something here. There, let's just say that lives. Now that's actually fairly sizable. That's a fair amount of points that black could actually obtain for himself. And he still has further reduction on the left-hand side, too. I mean, he's the one that actually has the endgame, not his opponent now. Now it's white that's going to find everything shrinking, while black has a fair number of points. So he tries to take that away, which puts white in a bit of a life-and-death situation, something we typically don't like being in. Yeah, I really dislike that too. It's like, yay, I have points. No, I don't. See, this is why I prefer every game ending in a resignation. That makes things so much easier. Just kill something until they're dead or you are. And, yeah. It's like, endgame? No, 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 no. I play Go, not endgame. Alright, so black's trying to hold on to some of this territory, which is what we're seeing here. What, that he wants to kill things? There's nothing wrong with endgame. Nothing wrong with liking endgame. I can appreciate games where a professional is just really, really great at endgame, because I'm not. I don't usually go over those kind of games, though, because it tends to be close, throughout the entire thing, and there's a few points here and there that are usually exchanged, and I don't typically find those to be really great for review, but yeah. Alright, so he's taking a few points for himself. Black's content to keep the right-hand side of the board. Admittedly, it is quite a few points. I think it's pretty much agreed that white is finally completely live on the top. So he's seeking to take a few more points there for himself. I think the most of the rest of this game is fairly uneventful until the last thing happens, though. Isn't it? Yeah, this lives easy. No co, I remember that. I think this actually goes all the way to counting, though, doesn't it? Yeah, looks like we're kind of going there now. I don't think there are any other interesting shoulder hits, so let's look at this real quick. Because most of this is just endgame that I don't intend to go over right now, like I mentioned. That is a Steam notification that you guys cannot see on my computer, but it will be on the video. Yeah, it looks like it does not quite go to counting, but black's obviously ahead. I mean, that right-hand side is huge, and his corners just aren't up to it. Nothing dies, but he has way more than enough territory to win. Did anyone have any questions about any of the shoulder hits you saw in this game, more the other one? No questions? Couldn't the ones on the right be cut? The second one, at least. Are you referring to the shoulder head on the right-hand side that could be cut? Which shoulder head? Should I give you control to see which one? Oh, D9? That's the left. This one? Yeah, you can cut this, absolutely. This is a small knight. Small knights can in fact be cut. Do you notice anything about this, though, that might not be in your best interest? Like, you can cut it, you will get that stone, no doubt about that, but you're surrounded, and now this is probably going to die. Losing the game, probably not a good strategy. Black gets the wall, yep. All of those, very, very true, very, very true. Especially if white gets Sente, or black gets Sente, because, I mean, this is going to be kept low, right? And then that's going to be completely sealed in. So maybe not even completely sealed in. Maybe he'll peep this first and then steal it in, since there's Aji there. And at this point, it's just insane how much black's getting. So yeah, gotta be careful of that. When your opponent says, "I want influence," pushing and cutting, he might give that up. We probably don't want to keep pushing against the stone that's trying to get influence, because if he gets that influence, how is that going to hurt you? What other questions did we have? I thought one of the shoulders was interesting. One didn't get an answer. He says K8? No. Which one didn't get answered that you thought was interesting? Oh, this one. Oh, okay. Yeah. White definitely can't respond to this. This is for reasons that we literally just looked at. I mean, if black gets stronger here, R2 stone, they're just going to get surrounded and killed. And even right now, I would be so uncomfortable as white here. I probably would not have the courage to try to pull off something like this. I'd be in panic mode where I'd be like attaching like a madman to anything in sight to see if I could make shape here. How to know when to punish locally. Well, shoulder hits can be their own punishment. I mean, because you're making your opponent stronger, like we saw on the left-hand side. That, oh. Well, getting your corner completely surrounded, that would be very, very large, because then your opponent could simply, keep dancing around the board like a crazy person. and just throwing their influence around, more or less. I mean, this is going to turn into a wall. Now we can go into here, and suddenly there's influence on the left-hand side as well, and all we have is the lower left-hand corner. That would be kind of bad. So he's obviously going to answer that, try to keep connection, at least make it so being surrounded is not going to be Sente. Unfortunately, that gave Sente to his opponent, and that's when he chose to fight back. Which also goes into Tokyo Rose's comment. I wondered why white played S12. Oh, okay. Well, because he was expecting he was trying to set up a ko, which is why we see the attachment here. I mean, maybe it should have been done earlier, I don't know. If he got the variation that he wanted, though, that would have been really, really good for him. It's hard to say just what he was reading here, but we know that if black played the normal variation with no deviations, then this suddenly turns very, very good for him. Which is why black didn't play this. And instead connected and kept things relatively simple. It's like, okay, you've got 3 different groups here. Rather than play the Joseki, I'm going to risk playing away from it because I don't think you can look after all of that at the same time. So it was an interesting choice. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I was wondering if perhaps he should have played R3 first, so he knows exactly how his opponents are going to respond. Hard to say when you could have played it, though. I mean, most of this is black. I mean, this is normal. That, however, is not. So yeah, hard to say how you could play that differently. Let's see, is there any other things that I missed? Right, I saw that. Before it gets too late, though, I will go ahead and mention that for next lecture, and there's a couple of things that I actually want to mention about next lecture, one of which is, yeah, we are down to 1 lecture after this one. So if you actually want to go ahead and donate to more lectures, you're more than welcome to do so. They're only like, what are they, 20 a lecture? So you can go ahead and do so there. Also, next lecture, the topic is not going to be shoulder hits. It's going to be something similar. I expect we're going to be touching along many of the same ideas. But I hope to go over attachments. I also hope to get a few more games than I did this time. Thank you for those few of you who did actually send in a game. I do have to emphasize few, though. I think I got like 3 send-ins, so not very many at all. I didn't really want to go over a professional example out of this, but kind of had to. But yes, next lecture is going to be on attachments. Same thing, you don't see many shoulder hits. It's kind of unusual. I see them a lot. Alright, attachments then, definitely want to see next time. Either used properly, not used properly, doesn't really matter, like I mentioned. If you want to send in a game where you think you didn't use it properly, I'm going to hide your name in case you're worried about that. They will not know who you are. Yeah, attachment to another stone. There are examples of for any reason, either to attack, to get influence, whatever reason the attachment was played. I will be reviewing if it was a good idea, if it was a bad idea, what the reason was for it to be played. Might be interesting. KGS series is actually continuing. KGS series actually has already continued, and you just don't know it. I recorded it not on Twitch TV. I recorded it on a local player to see if I could get Ina's volume. For those of you paying attention to it, you know who she is. If I can get her audio a little bit better. Not really certain if it is or not. Unfortunately, I've also determined that I don't pay any attention in my first game. I was using a local player. We realized that we had absolutely no idea if her audio was even being picked up. I'm not even sure if I'm going to upload that one. The commentary is not good. Second game I probably will upload, though. I'd have to encode it and upload it. So yeah, that should be up there fairly soon. So yes, you're all more than welcome. I upload it to my YouTube account. Oh, you don't know which one? Okay. 1 second. I do have my link for all of this information nicely in my room info. You can find it there. I have a playlist for this. I have KGS games that I played on there. I've got Taigem games that I played on there. A couple of IGS ones, some World Baduk. Something that I've been doing for a very long time now, actually. Also, I intend to start the Taigem game after my next KGS game. I intend to record one more in my KGS series, and then I will be doing the other. Yeah, lecture's over for now. Until week after next, when we will be going over attachments, assuming I get games sent in to me. No way. Well, yeah, I don't think so. KGS, well, it depends. Some people, there's a lot of question about KGS ranks. Because sometimes it has to do with the player in particular. Someone who is really, really good at fighting, for example, but has their direction of play a little bit lacking, are going to find it a little bit more difficult to play here, because here I find they back away from fighting and they kind of focus on direction of play a bit more, whereas the reverse is also true. I mean, I've known some people who play better on Taigem than they do on KGS. I've also met people that play better on KGS and not Taigem. Or did I say the same thing twice? You know what I mean. So it kind of depends on that. I think up to about 5 down and below now, unfortunately, it kind of tends to be a bit of a question mark, simply because you can actually create an account up to that level now. I think even English users can. Before it was only up to 3 dan, so everything 3 dan or up to 3 dan was a bit of a question mark, and everything above it was pretty strong. That's kind of changed a little bit, unfortunately. Anyway, like I mentioned, week after next, we'll be having the lecture. Feel free to donate. You have a link. Feel free to send in your games. You can... Oh, I'm dumb. I did not tell you where to send in the games. Derp, 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 derp. There you go. Email. You can send in any games with attachments that you think would be good to go over, or you think would be bad to go over. That's probably a good reason to do it. To akari@zoominternet.net. And I will see you all week after next. Good luck and have fun.